Welcome to the Life with Joey Calvo podcast. I am Joey Calvo. Before we get started with our guest, and I mentioned to our guests today what's going on, I want to bring up the fact that, yes, this podcast is raising money to update and expand. And when I posted this on Facebook, okay, I've been getting a lot of negative feedback in reference to that I should be able to do it. Okay. So let me clarify very quickly. One, in reference to this is not benefiting me. Okay. If you, the viewers, and the viewers of the podcast, okay, want better guests, and I apologize to our guests today about that statement. Plus, where I got our guest from is not going to be free. Okay, so my resources are getting limited. Okay, plus I lost my job. Okay, I was fired from my job. Okay, and I am looking at going back to work. So those that are saying that, I shouldn't be begging, if you don't have any good comments to say, don't post them. Because I'm going to say it right now. If you post a negative comment during this live stream podcast tonight, you will get blocked. I am not taking any more shit anymore. And Mike, I apologize for using that word, cursing and all that, but I'm just super frustrated with it. So, like I said, if you don't want to help, shut up. Okay? Share if you like, but shut up on the comments, because any negative comment, bye-bye. And I'm not going to look back. Okay? And again, I apologize to our guest about that as well. Because it's not against him, in reference to it. He understood why I'm venting in reference to it. So, now that I got this out of my system, I do want to introduce our guest. His name is Mike Smith. He is founder of the Gutter Gospel, and he was a former homeless veteran who shares the true life story of redemption and how God rescued him and could help others who struggle daily with their lives. Mike, welcome to the podcast.
You're welcome, Joey. I'm glad to be here, man. It's been looking forward to it. So let's roll.
Yeah, no problem. So first, Mike, explain to our viewers, who is Mike Smith? How did we get to where we're at?
Okay. Well, I'm not sure how far back you want to start. I guess
as far back as you want.
Okay. Most of these podcasts I do, Joey, I kind of take people through my journey and kind of put it in proper perspective, starting from when I was born, which was in Aberdeen, South Dakota. Lived there until I was age 3, and then my dad got transferred to another town up in Sauk Center, Minnesota. He was, I should say, a manager for the JCPenney clothing store line.
Okay.
So then at age 12, he was fired from his job. Okay.
Wow.
So he had a family of myself and 4 of my siblings and his wife to support. So he was out of options, kind of like what you were starting, talking about today. And he used the life savings that they had to move us up to a little town right outside of Fargo, North Dakota called Barnesville, Minnesota.
Okay.
And that was at the age, Joey, when everything was turbulent. I was in a new town that I hated, only had one friend in high school, and got into drinking and smoking pot and the party life, rebelling. And then fast forward 3 more years, my dad all of a sudden drops dead of a massive heart attack.
Well, I'm sorry to hear that.
Yeah, and that was, I'm a 2-time suicide survivor, so I want to get that out there. Right after my dad died, I tried to take my own life, and I write about that in my book. Right. And another thing I want to get out there about the book is that I give it away for free on my website on the bottom of my homepage, theguttergospel.com. You can follow me on Instagram now. We're setting up our other social media profiles as we speak. My Instagram account is just mike.guttergospel. And so that's how you find me on Instagram. And anyway, so yeah, as I was saying, that was my first suicide attempt. My mom was making it clear to all the kids that we were going to lose the store. We were going to lose our house to the bank right after he passed away because it was looking really grim. She tried running it for a couple of years before I graduated high school, but then you know, it just she didn't know what she was doing, so that didn't fly. So she did lose everything to the bank. And then I tried college for a year, flunked out of that. And then I joined the Air Force because my dad was in the Air Force and I was basically out of options. So that gives you a little bit of background, getting me into my military days in the Air Force. I was in there for a little over 2 years when me and my buddies all got busted for smoking marijuana in the Air Force and got kicked out. So, I had a really hard life after that because nobody wanted to hire a junkie from, ex-military. It was really a stigma back then. I just turned 60, but it was a totally different era back in those days. Nancy Reagan had her war on drugs when I was in. So, those guys didn't tolerate any BS. They just booted us all. So, anyway, I did a lot of odd jobs. I was working construction, did asbestos removal, all kinds of crap jobs, and met up with a buddy of mine that I had met in college. Don Matthews was the guy's name. Good guy. He was fifth degree black belt in Taekwondo, and we became roommates in a little house over in Moorhead, Minnesota, right by the college, and trained out like bandits. We just hit the gym 6 days a week, got off everything, lived a clean life. And that's when I became a born again believer. But then that wasn't the end of it. I had a lot more to live through in my life, including another suicide attempt later in life. And I had 2 civil commitments placed on me. I'd lived in 2 homeless shelters, VA homeless shelters. And I had a civil commitment, like I said, placed on me in both states, North Dakota, Minnesota, but also I was in jail for a little over a week or 2. And that's when I was cycling really bad with my bipolar disorder. I put a couple sample chapters up on my website if you guys want to know what it's like to cycle with mania. And you can read that. The sample chapters are, like I said, they're up there. You can just click on the tab on my website, and it's very graphic. I'm going to warn people about that. Reality is that, I went through a lot of, like you use the word shit, I'll use the same word in my life. And wound up actually becoming institutionalized out in the state institution, late in life in 2019 is when that happened. And I remember just crying out to God saying, why God, why me, just having a pity party saying, why did I have to go through all this BS in my life? And I looked up and there was this plaque on the wall that said, you've been given this life because you're strong enough to live it. And that really struck me right between my eyes and kind of propelled me into what I'm up to today, which is attending jail chaplain ministry small groups. I just came from a group, as you know, Joey. I just got out of my one in Moorhead that I lead on Thursday nights. So involved with that. So that's a real rapid rundown of my life, all within less than 15 minutes.
Well, we haven't even got through 10 yet, but and you said on Instagram it's Mike.theguttergospel or just Mike.guttergospel?
Yeah, just Mike.guttergospel. You can pull me up.
Okay. No, I have it written down, so that's why I asked.
Okay, yeah, but your listeners can find me there and reach out to me, follow me, message me. and I will get back to them if they're struggling with suicide or addiction, like I did for all those years, or
Mhm.
you name it. That's
Yeah.
how they can find me, is on Instagram. So, like I said, we'll get out on YouTube and Pinterest and some of those other ones. For some reason, Joey, Facebook blocked me, and I don't know why,
Wow.
because I wasn't even.
I can probably give you an idea because it happened to me years ago.
Yeah,
Yeah, because in reference to your story, my story is almost there as well, except my time was a little bit longer than a week, and it was worse than what you did in reference to it.
yeah,
Mine. I normally don't bring this up on it, but I will say in reference to what happened with me, mine has become a life sentence in a way, in
wow,
the back of my mind. I may
yeah,
have gone through it, and moved on, but that part of my life is there, and I can't, kick it to the curb, stuff like that.
yeah.
So,
Well, Joey, in all honesty, man, the truth is that
mhm,
if people experience stuff like that, they can't really kick it to the curb, just like you. It's always with me. And when I do these appearances on these podcasts that I really enjoy doing, that, depending on the part of my life they're talking about or asking me questions about, I get emotional, because to
mhm,
me, the reason I'm doing these podcasts and not charge anything for the book is,
yeah,
for me it's therapy, to
yeah,
talk about the loss of my dad at an early
mhm,
age, the
right,
suicide attempts and all the rest of it.
right,
So, I'll share this with you,
yeah,
that one of the last places I was in before I actually got my freedom back, this
mhm,
doctor came in with a big stack of my medical records, and he said, Mike, let me be the first to tell you, if you've never heard this before, that I just want to say how sorry I am that you had to go through all that shit in your
mhm,
life.
yeah,
So, you can hear me starting to kind of get choked up, because
yeah, 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 yeah.
it's emotional still, and that,
Mhm,
like I said, it's therapy for me to come on these shows and share
right,
that with
right,
people.
right. Well, I am going to share with you um, a little bit on me as well. Um, and part of it actually was a little recent. Matter of fact, too recent. Um, like you, Mike, I also was in a homeless shelter for 3 months. Not even 3 months. January 10 and or yeah, it was a little bit. It was a couple months. It was a couple
Okay.
months, and
Yeah.
I was in a homeless shelter because um, my ex-wife and I had separated, and she wound up moving down south, and um, you know we had to get rid of our cats and everything, and so when we separated, and I stayed the homeless shelter, I turned around and I did something. See, one thing I'm not saying if you did while you were in the VA homeless shelters, but you know how a lot of the homeless people, when they're out during the day, they go out panhandle and all that. I actually did not panhandle. I didn't even think of panhandling because
Yeah.
you know I but I started to I thank God that my life didn't get any worse than what happened with the past, um, in reference to that. Um, so right down the street from the homeless shelter was the Philadelphia Inquirer. So I one night I went out, or one day I went out. One night I went out, or one day I went out, went down there, and went to see if there was any jobs available. And they're like, okay, well, come here on this at 4 o'clock in the morning on the next day, and we'll put you to work. So I literally was standing on the street corners. Actually, I was more. I don't know if how the panhandlers are, where you live. If they're in the middle of the street when they're asking for money and stuff. Well, that's what I was. I was selling the newspapers like a panhandler.
Gotcha. Okay.
Yeah. So I started making my money off of it, and the supervisor that ran the group I worked with, he's like, listen, I got a 1-bedroom apartment, $125 a week. It's yours if you want it. I was like, yeah. And lo and behold, I moved into the neighborhood I've been living in for 15 years. And so I was out of the homeless shelter. I was in this place. I was very happy. I met someone during that time, because all the other relationships I had in my life all cheated on me. One led to my downfall, I'll say. And my life started to change. So when I mentioned to my ex that I had this place now, she brought all my stuff. And, the stuff that we had together, and she brought it to me, and it moved on with me. And then I met someone else who she would call herself a prostitute in a way, but she was actually in a relationship and kids. So instead of paying my rent, I was paying for her kids almost every day. I was making sure they had their lunches or diapers and stuff like that. And it got to the point where I fell behind on my rent and lost the apartment. And at that time, I love cats. So I had 3 cats by then, and I was very happy. I was working my butt off with the newspapers, and I was bringing in mass money when I was, and plus this supervisor had another job of the same type with a neighboring newspaper in Delaware County. So he asked me if I was interested in doing that, and I did that. So I was working kind of like 7 days a week. And like I said, it got me out. It got me, I was working, I was starting to move forward with my life. Mm-hmm. And then, like I said, this person came along with the kids and all that, and I wound up falling behind on the rent, and I lost the apartment. So, first suicide attempt, I call it, was I was walking over the South Street Bridge here in South Philly. It's right close to where I live, matter of fact. And I was walking over it, and I started looking at the Schuylkill River. And I said, you know what? I'm done. I'm literally done. But the first person I met got into the back of my head and literally said, because if anything happened to me, someone else would be on that corner, and this person would be asking, excuse me, where I was, and then if they turned around and said, oh well, he committed suicide last night or something like that, it would have been devastating. So she got into the back of my head somehow and said that she would miss me if I was gone, and it stopped me right there in my tracks. Yeah. And to that point, I was like, I'm not gonna let this happen again. I'm not gonna, screw up major league like that. Well, I wind up being back in a homeless shelter for about a month. And as I was getting my money together, I found another place right in the same neighborhood. Matter of fact, down the street. It's actually right at the corner where I'm living now, which is still in the same neighborhood where I first started. And make a long story short, The only reason, excuse me, that I lost that place was because of there was a argument with the ownership of the building in reference to the corner store and the owner. So I wind up leaving, and so I moved down half a block down from where that's at, and where I've been here now for 12 years, and and this landlord has worked thick and thin with me, so I'm grateful for that. I'm blessed with that. So, now in reference to the second suicide attempt, was actually this past weekend.
Wow.
Yeah, last week was my birthday. Okay, and I just turned 54, and I gave myself a nice little Christmas present. I got a weekend down in Atlantic City. And as I was going down, I went down. I had a night, I got there early enough. I paid the early check-in fee, got up to the room. I was happy with the room because I was happy, even though it was a double bed and I ordered a king originally, but I was happy. But what happened was that GoFundMe page that I mentioned earlier in the rant before we started, I started having a problem. The one person that was attempting to help me all of a sudden wanted money to help, because they were like, oh, well, there's this theory that if I'm able to do it, you'll be able to get donations faster. And I said, I don't have any more money. It costs me money to even get the website that's in the description to the GoFundMe. That costs me some money. And again, I'm not working. I'm living off of unemployment, and it's paying the rent every week for right now and some other bills. So, I did that, and it depressed me. And of course, I have an ocean view room, so I'm looking right at the ocean, and I was starting to feel like giving up. I was like done with me, because from everything I had mentioned earlier, plus the rant that I brought out, I was like, that ocean's starting to call me. And I sat there, I kept looking at that ocean, and like, that ocean wants me. Like I give up. There's nothing I can do anymore. I can't stay positive. I can't, I can't function right. How you're saying how in reference to your books, you're giving them away for free for therapy.
Right.
Well, this podcast, and I got through I was actually diagnosed with anxiety and depression in 2009. And I got to psychologists and psychiatrists, and this one psychiatrist actually told me that this podcast was my therapy.
Right.
And it started to hit me a little. It took a little bit to hit me. And hello, puppy.
You hear him, huh?
Yeah, I can hear him.
I got 3 of them if you want one.
No, unfortunately, I can't have pets. Believe me, I'm a as much as I'm a cat lover, I am a dog lover too. But I can't have an animal where I'm at. If I had a regular place, I would have probably said yeah. You
take all 3, right?
Yeah, yeah. I have been happy to take a puppy off your hands.
Yeah,
and then because I see a lot of Facebook reels and Instagram reels with cats and dogs getting together, getting along. Yeah, so I was thinking about that. But in reference to this past weekend, I was giving up. I was like, I had it. I was done. This podcast is not really helping me anymore. Or wanting to even put the effort to want to expand and even upgrade this podcast was starting to feel like a waste of my thoughts and time. And on top of that, what I wanted to do, and this is another thing of if things think that it's benefited me, I wanted to do what's called a meet and greet, and where people would come to Atlantic City, because to me Atlantic City is better than Philadelphia in reference to location, and especially the place I'm looking at, it's right by the ocean, so so make a long story short, I was going to have it to where the viewers of the podcast and those that watch it on YouTube that live in the area that want to meet former guests that were on, or there's another person that I'm going to introduce in a little bit, come down and meet them in person, get their autograph, get their books if they have books or whatever they want to do, and and get to know them. And then one of the ideas that came out of it, on top of it, was an after party. So I was thinking about that on the first night, because this place has a rooftop bar on the roof of the hotel.
Okay.
Yeah. So I was going to do an after party type thing where, you can get really up close and personal with them and, have a drink with them and all that. And that would have been a separate admission, of course. But everybody's like, you shouldn't be begging. So, and I apologize, Mike, for taking time away from you for this. But I also wanted to share, because we kind of have the similar stories in our lives of what's going on. So, so I do want to introduce you to the podcast number one fan, number one supporter. She's a real life superheroine, and she provided these questions for you that you had gotten in advance. And her name is American Fox. And just give me one moment. There we go. This is American Fox. She is going to be, and I'm going to say if and when the meet and greet happens, she's going to be one of the guests that's going to participate in the meet and greet.
Nice.
So that's kind of why we're raising this money, so people can meet American Fox, or like I said, a former guest. So she has some questions for you. So the first question that she had for you is, what got you interested in writing?
Yeah, that's a good question, and I'll share this with you, Joey. I was watching an Oprah Winfrey show many years ago that she had the Book of the Month Club, and this writer came on her show to share about the Book of the Month Club, his story, supposedly it was his true life story. Come to find out, after the show aired, and the book was called A Million Pieces, if you ever heard of it. But anyway,
I think I heard about this scandal.
Yeah, exactly. So
I think I remember hearing that. Yeah.
The night after he appeared on the show, people were calling in that knew him, saying, "Hey, this guy's full of crap. He's never been through hardly any of that stuff he was talking about on Oprah." So she brought him back the next day or the next week or whatever it was. I can't remember exactly, but anyway, she brought him back to chew his ass and say, how dare you come on here and mislead my audience and this, that, the other thing. And I remember turning to my wife, Joey, and saying, this idiot can get on national TV with a made up story. I think I could write my own book, and it would be honest and truthful, and the actual gospel truth, if you want to use that word, and say, you know what? Because by that time, Joey, I had lived through the second sample chapter where I was in a padded cell experiencing for 3 straight days in a straitjacket. And so anyway, experiencing what it would be like to be in hell. And I was so terrified out of my mind that when I came to, this little light just started to kind of get bigger and bigger from all the darkness. And this nurse was standing over me, and she goes, "Mike, hi, I'm Nurse Amy. I'm going to be your nurse today to take care of you." So she's talking to me for a little bit. Then a couple days later, she came into my room and she said, "I don't know if I should share this with you, but when you were coming out of that, your eyes were as big as saucers. You look like a cornered animal. You were so terrified." So
Wow.
that was just one of my sample chapters. Like I mentioned, it's on it's in the book and it's on the site. But anyway, so that got me into writing. I started journaling, and when I was going through all that stuff in my life, that I was writing all the time. So that answers your question. I always say to people, it took me 30 years to write it and 60 years to live it. So there you go. There's your answer.
Yeah. I mean, thank I'm not saying I never had those thoughts of being in a padded cell as much as there are people that I know that wish I was in a padded cell right now. Or even back then. So share a little bit about that quick before I go to the next question from American Fox.
Yeah, okay. Well, anyway, you know who Tony Robbins is,
Yes.
right?
Yep.
Okay. So here's how it happened, Joey. I'm going to give you the backstory on it now. So I was the manager at the city transit system at the time. It was when Y2K was all the talk in 1999. This was right before Thanksgiving. And so because I was in that managerial role, I was on TV one night just watching crap, and this infomercial for Tony comes on, and he's talking about how you can become a better this and a better that through the Personal Power series. That was his product he was pushing at the time.
Yeah.
And anyway, so he had a 30-day money back guarantee. Okay. So I thought to myself, since I'm bipolar, I thought, well, shit, I'm not going to pay the almost $300 for the product and hold on to it. I'm just going to absorb it all within like 10 days and mail it back for my refund. Right. And so I was doing that and missing out on sleep. Yeah. And so I was driving, I live in West Fargo, and I was driving back downtown to Fargo to get back to my gig as the manager. And I was hearing these voices in my head. And one of them said, "Well, Mike, what do you want out of life?" And I said, "I guess I want more money." And then I thought right away, no, that's not the answer. And I kept kind of playing these ideas in my head, like, well, what do you really want? And then finally, this like voice from God, if you want to call it that, said to me, I said, "I guess what I want is acceptance in the end. That's all I want is acceptance." And then the voice said, "I do accept you and love you, and I died for you. Now go out and tell the world." So I got out of my car. I started to stop traffic and say, the end of the world is here. So you got to repent and this, that, and the other thing. So pretty soon a cop pulls me over and to the side of the road. So traffic could start flowing again. Asked me if I knew anybody in town, and I said, "Yeah, I know your boss." He goes, "What do you mean you know my boss?" And I said, "His name is Keith Turnus, my little sister's husband. So she married the chief of police, right?" And he goes, "Well, how do you know him?" So I told him that, and then he started kind of putting some stuff together on me, and then he put me in his car and took me to the psych unit where they evaluated me. And then they put me up there, tried to put me there overnight for observation. But I said, "I'll effing sue all of you if you don't let me out of here right now."
Wow.
So I went home that night, was pacing the floor, couldn't sleep still. with all this crap going on in my head, and it was demonic as hell. So the next morning, the ambulance comes to the house, puts me in a straitjacket, and the rest is history.
Oh,
So,
wow.
yeah, like I
Yeah.
said, Joey, I have gone through so much in my life. I would love for people to message me on Instagram or to I would encourage them to read the book
Yeah.
because there's a lot in there for 30 years of going through hell on earth. So yeah, that's the answer, buddy.
Yeah. 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 Wow. Okay. I appreciate that because, like I said, I never, I always see, these movies or if it's in a music video of, people being in straitjackets and it's just something, not that I would ever think about, but it was just, you know, just the curiosity about what it was really like,
Right.
of it
That's why
happening.
that's why one of my favorite movies is A Beautiful Mind, with Russell Crowe in it, because he was bipolar.
Okay.
That's a true life movie. And actually, as we speak, I'm working with something. I'll send you the link. You can
Okay.
get, and it's called ICVM, which stands for International Christian Visual Media Storytellers Conference down in Orlando, Florida, October 1st through the 4th. And like I
Okay.
said, I'll email you the link so you can share that with your
I
audience.
was it
But
icpm.org?
I C as in cat, V as in victory, M as in Mike,
Okay.
Storytellers Conference. That's what you Google. 2025.
Oh,
It's
I
October.
thought you had the website because I was putting it up.
Oh, okay. No, that's where I'm going to see about getting my book turned into a true life movie. So
Oh, good, good, great. I wish you a lot of luck with that. Okay,
yeah.
so we're gonna get to the next question from American Fox, and
Okay.
it's in reference to the gospel. How did the gutter gospel get its title?
Good question. The gutter references the hell I had to go through, and now I'm preaching the gospel all around the world. So the two kind of came together, and I've had that URL reserved now for almost 3 years, and I didn't really do anything with it until the first of the year. I had a good buddy of mine by the name of Brad Witzke pass away in December, and he died of cancer, which was a real blow for me and set me back. And he turned to me one time when I was taking him to his chemo appointment, and he said to me, "Mike, you think I'm going to die soon?" And I said, "Well, you know what, buddy? Look at it this way, man. If you do die off, you're going to be in such a better place than living in this crappy world with all of its diseases and everything else." So that fueled me to say, after I lost him, to say, okay, Mike, really get focused on this. And that's why he died December 14th. So a little over
Wow.
2 weeks later, here's my puppy. Hey, take a look.
Oh,
See him?
I see. Oh, I see puppy.
Yeah,
I
that's
see puppy.
Odie from
That's
the.
Odie. Oh,
Yeah.
of course. I
Yeah.
love Garfield. Believe me, I'm a Garfield fan. So
Yep. Exactly. That's how he got his name. So
yeah,
that's Odie. Yeah.
yeah.
And Baxter's in here. Oh,
Okay,
he went to get some food. And then I
okay.
got another one by the name of Reese, which we called Chubbs because he's way overweight. So
Oh, oh,
I got Odie, Baxter, and Chubbs.
oh.
Yeah.
Believe me, like I said, if I had room for a puppy, I would have been happy to take one. I would,
Oh,
because
I'm
I
so
like I said,
attached to him now. I would never give one away. They're
I know. I had, like I said, I had 3 cats, and the first cat, I'm going to be very quick with it. First cat I had, I got it from that corner store where I lived.
Oh, okay.
It was in the basement, so they were getting, I don't know how they don't know how it got into the basement, but I took it and I brought it back home, and it stayed underneath my stove and oven for weeks. The only time it came out is if I was not in the room and it was dark.
Oh, okay.
But anytime I wanted to spend time with the cat, now did not want to come out, would hiss at me, all that jazz. I left it alone. So a lady I got to know had found me 2 boys.
Oh,
So she brought the 2 boys over, and they made themselves at home. And as they got to make themselves at home, this one that was underneath the stove started coming out
oh, nice.
and started to blend in. And I was like, I was really happy. And as time went on, this cat actually started to open up a little bit more with me. So the one time, they all needed. Well, that one in particular was not spayed or neutered. So they were offering, because we have a vet not far away from where I live. They were offering spayed neutering for like $10. Now I'm dating this back 12 years ago, 13 years ago.
Oh,
And so I went to take the cat over, and they're like, Mr. Calvo, it's a girl. I was like, I had a girl cat the whole time, and I kept calling it a boy. Because I was calling it Mac. I named it Maxie, as thinking it's a boy. Max for short. Well, Maxie blended right into it in reference to the name, and we found out it was a girl. And I was like, oh wow. So the rest of the time that I had these cats, I had an all gray one. I had a tabby with white boots that I named him Boots, and then I had Bandit. Bandit was like almost a gray cat, and then I had Maxie. Maxie was gray and white, and reminded me of the kitten that I had with my ex-wife before my ex-in-laws, God rest their souls, sold the place. So we had a cat that looked like that, and it reminded me of Maxie, so I kept the Maxie along with it. And the one time I had to bomb it for fleas, because somehow they got fleas. So I bombed it. So I'm sitting outside. I've got the cats in the carriers and all that, and they're not very happy with me about it. But they're managing. And then once everything took care of itself, I brought it back in. And then my ex and I had a bird as well, and we got it from a neighbor when we first got married, and her parents were living in another part of the city. And so we took the bird in, and she brought the bird to me. Well, these 3 had a ball with it, to the point that one day I came home, the cage was on the ground. Bird came out, was out, found it, was still alive, thank God, for a couple days. I turned around, I put the bird back in the cage, put the cage back up. These 3 scared the hell out of it, and it died of a heart attack. It died like about 2 days later. And I was wondering, like, why is this bird not moving? And then realized it was dead. As I was like, I looked at those 3 cats like, you son of a bitches. I was like, I understand you were all over it, but you had to kill it, But
yeah.
Like I said, I love the 3 cats. Like I said, Boots used to be at my head, used to lick my head. Bandit would always be on my chest, and Maxie would be in the closet looking at me from a distance. So, all right. So, again, I apologize for taking time from that. So, the third question we have from American Fox is this: what are you working on for the future? And I know that you mentioned in reference to getting your book into a movie or even like a TV movie type thing, which I will pray for that happening for you because I am a Joel Osteen fan. So I kind of do, like I said, I thank God for everything He has done for me, and I will be thinking of you as that time comes. And you said that's in October, correct?
Yes, sir. The 1st through the 4th down in Orlando.
Okay. All right.
And I got family down there, so it's going to be a good time.
Oh, that's good. That's good. That's good. All right.
Right by Disney World. That's where the hotel is.
Oh, jeez. I actually first time I went to Disney World was 1999.
Yeah, I've never been
there. 2000 actually. It was 2000 because I was with the last girlfriend before I got married, and her parents had timeshares.
Oh, I got you.
Yeah. And we stayed outside of Disney, but we went to all the Disney parks. Yeah. And it was I was never there, and I actually enjoyed it.
Cool.
Yeah. And then we spent another couple days in North Carolina, in Atlantic Beach, North Carolina. And while we were there, my father had gotten sick. He had heart problems, and my godfather wound up being in the hospital at the same time. So, make a long story short, they told me where my godfather was. So I went downstairs. I didn't realize I was in the morgue. My godfather had passed away not long before I got there. So I didn't realize I was in the morgue. So I'm sitting there talking to a dead guy for like 15, 20 minutes. But it brought me closure in reference to it. And then my father, and what was ironic is my father had passed away 6 years after my godfather passed away.
Yeah.
Hell
of a thing to lose somebody, it really is. Yeah. I shared about my dad, in my first suicide attempt, and that was something to overcome. I'll never forget the day that he passed away. My bedroom was in the basement of our house, and my brother came running down saying, "Dad's dead, Dad's dead." So I went upstairs into his bedroom, saw him laying there, all purple, and it was like, it just scarred me for life. Yeah. And I was going to share this with you too, as long as I'm talking about this. That, I was going to say that it was hell on earth, just going through that at a young age, because I hated the town. I didn't have any friends except one. I found out before I got banned on Facebook for whatever reason, that the guy that was my friend took his own life about 3-4 years ago. Right. So, and I regret not staying in touch with him over the years, because I think, I could have at least encouraged him like I'm doing to everybody on these podcasts now, and say, hey, there is hope out there still. I know it's a shitty world, but, there is hope too. So that goes back to those small groups. But I just saw that getting posted up here, that you posted my Instagram. So thank you for that.
Yeah, not a problem. Not a problem. I was planning on that was planned anyway, so that's why I had asked that. So, and in reference to what you just said, I feel the same way. Like I said, God saved me back in 2008, 2009, and I was very thankful that what happened with me wasn't worse than it could have been. And And then what happened was, while I was in prison, um, one thing I actually did do, I normally never did before. I normally didn't read books, but I read two books. I forgot what the first one was, but the second one was called The Shack. And it was a very, it was a very touching book. It was very touching. And they made it to a movie. Matter of fact, in 2000, I think it was 17, they made this book into a movie. And it was a really, the movie just blew me out of the water, because it, was following the book. And it had Octavia Spencer in it as God. And it's a very good movie. If you folks ever get a chance, watch The Shack. If you've never read the book, watch the movie, because the movie literally is the book. And the way the book goes is this gentleman had kids, of course, and the youngest kid disappeared and was found dead in this shack. And because of what had happened, he was afraid of going back. He had trouble facing the reality that his youngest baby was dead.
Yeah.
And so one day, out of the blue, he got a letter. No one knew how it showed up, to come to the shack and, not just like forgive, but to love again, in a way.
Right.
And so when he goes up to the shack, and he walks in, it turns into a whole nother world. Everything is, what you would want to see in life. The grass being green and the rainbows, and, everything that you would think that could be heaven for all we know.
Right.
Yeah. And, and during that time that he was there, he was rebuilding his life in a way. And it showed the three parts that we normally say when we, do, in the Catholic Church. God, God, the Spirit, God, and Holy, I'm sorry, I'm a little out on it. But, the three parts to God.
Right. Father, Son, and Holy Spirit.
God, Father, the Holy Spirit. There we go.
Yeah.
So Octavia Spencer played God. There was another one that played the Father, quote unquote, and there was a lady that played the Holy Spirit, or she played. Well, you got to see the movie The Shack. It's worth watching. So,
gotcha.
Outside of now, folks, you can find Mike on theguttergospel.com, and he is now on Instagram at mike.guttergospel. Just to let you know, Mike, if you go into Threads, which is Instagram's version of Twitter,
yeah,
it's going to use your Instagram handle, just to let you know.
Nice.
So you don't have to do anything else. You just, sign up with Threads, and it'll say, oh, you want to connect your Instagram, and it'll connect your Instagram to it. And then,
cool.
So you don't even have to create a new handle for Threads. Facebook banned you because of your past.
Probably, yeah.
Yeah. And
I wasn't even posting anything on there. Yeah. I had a page set up, and we were trying to get it hooked up to my business page for the Gutter Gospel. So I hired an intern up in Grand Forks to do all of my social media, and she was telling me what to do, but I didn't listen to her. What she suggested. I just logged out and tried logging back in, and it banned me. So
Right.
go figure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
But anyway, like I said, I'm going to get on WhatsApp and YouTube and Pinterest and all the rest of them. So look for that in the upcoming week, because
yeah.
I've already paid the lady to get all that stuff set up for me. She's a college student who just returned from a trip over in Spain for her senior year, and she's
Wow.
doing social media and her own business now for her living once she graduates in another month. So, yeah.
Okay. Well,
What?
let me ask you this in closing, because we only have a few minutes before the hour comes up. Have you thought about doing a podcast like this?
You know what? I get asked that a lot, Joey. And now that it's kind of catching fire, I think I might. Yeah.
Okay.
Because I think I would enjoy it. I was talking to so many interesting people, man. I met a guy in South Africa that was running one that dives with sharks. I met a veteran here out in Virginia that was in the Navy 22 years and retired.
Yeah.
And people from all over the world. I mean, I've met podcasters in Brazil, Mexico, lots in the US, some in the UK. So I'm getting kind of all over the place. And I think it's time to probably go that route, since I am on Matchmaker.fm and all the.
Yeah.
I can easily add that and start my own here pretty quickly.
Yeah. Well, let me give you the best piece of advice.
Yeah.
Okay. Just to give you an idea how much it actually cost me to start this.
Yeah.
It would actually surprise you.
Yeah.
It didn't cost me 1 cent.
Right. Yeah, I know.
And I originally started with Anchor.fm, which is now part of Spotify. Which is now podcast for Spotify. But now they changed it to where you can't do what I used to do is, as I was doing the YouTube with the platform I'm using now, I was also recording it through the Anchor.fm app. So I had both versions. I had an audio version, I had a video version. And on the audio version, I had like supermodel Carol Alt. I had smooth jazz guitarist Eric Essex the first time. And I had I also had Gregory Jabbar, but we wind up doing we were on this platform for that. And so I was recording it as I was doing it in the live stream.
Yeah.
But within the past year, I'll say till end of August, they don't let you record anymore.
Oh, gotcha.
So that's why I'm more on the YouTube than I am on that. But it still didn't cost me anything for this platform that I sent you the email with the link.
Gotcha.
You didn't have to download anything on it. So if you're going to start a podcast, you said you were thinking about a YouTube channel, here you go. Because this, when I finish these podcasts, okay, I actually send the guest the actual YouTube link. So you'll be able to post it on your website. And those that visit your website could actually click on the link and see you on this podcast. So if there's a way that they can that you'll be able to link it up to your website, then you should be able to do that with no problem. I'm going to apologize if we go over the hour, like I said, because of the rant from earlier. Plus, now that you're in the interest of doing a podcast, and like I said, I'm
on Spotify also, Spotify Premium.
Okay, yeah. Oh, this podcast is on. Yeah, when I started the Anchor.fm, it put me on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, so many platforms. This podcast is now, well, when the audio ended last year, we had just got on Amazon.
Oh, okay.
We were on Amazon. We were on, I don't think we're on Audacity, but I also want to announce that I didn't get a chance to announce earlier because of the rant, quote unquote. The old audio podcasts that were on the Anchor.fm website, which is now Spotify, a podcaster for Spotify, is now on the iHeartRadio app. So it gives you all the old audio versions of this podcast up till July of 24. So every podcast that I recorded on audio is now on the iHeartRadio app. I don't make anything for it, but
did you say Anchor.fm got taken over by Spotify?
yes, sir. As of maybe 23.
Okay.
Late 23, early 24.
So if I got Spotify Premium, then that allows me to book myself as a guest and also do
use the same you use your same login for Spotify for the podcasters for Spotify. But you actually, if you're going to record, they want you to use like your phone recorder, voice recorder in reference to that. So that's why I didn't even bother with it anymore. Like I said, with YouTube, it's easier. Yeah. It gets out. I had it, and just to give you an idea on viewers, I don't get a lot of viewers. But I still do this, like I said, because of therapy. And the reason why I'm doing that, like I said, the reason why I was doing that GoFundMe is to expand it to where, I can get, more guests, more celebrities.
I should send you a link, Joey, of the first podcast interview I did. It was with, I'm trying to remember it now. It was called The Decision Hour with Adam Bird as the owner. It went out to 3.7 million listeners.
Wow.
And he's based in Phoenix, Arizona, and it's all veterans that listen to it like myself. And I'll share this with you and your audience.
Sure.
I wound up getting 100% service connection from the military.
Wow.
So that means that I get almost $4,000 a month tax-free from the government because of all the hell I had to go through. My psychiatrist helped me get that, and I got that back in 2019. So now what I do is save my money to get down to Orlando in October and use it for that to spread, to go out even further, to pay for the Matchmaker.fm, Spotify, and some of the other stuff to really extend my reach. And now we're, like I said, now we're also starting to get out on social media as well to get it out to even more. So let me ask you a question before I let you go.
Sure.
Because of what you said right at the beginning before we even started recording the episode, I got this question. Do you think it would be wise for me or not wise to start my own GoFundMe page since I give my book away for free? What do you think?
In reference to the book, if you're already doing it for free, if you're going to do a GoFundMe,
just to save for the trip, basically.
Well, you could say you're doing that for the trip, and what you're in reference to the book, but in reference to, I'm doing it because, like I said, the Matchmaker.fm that I reached you at, and most others,
is going to start.
It's not going to be free anymore, and right now I can't afford it. And then, of course, I'm dating this back. I'm dating this back to the 80s and all those movies. There's an actress by the name of Diane Franklin. And I reached out to her and I asked her, I said, listen, do you want to come on the podcast? She said, I'd be happy to, but I charge $150.
Yeah.
And when I heard that, I was like, I was getting upset because I didn't have $150. So that's why with this GoFundMe that I'm doing, it's, I want to set up a little pool, quote unquote, to where I can compensate a Diane Franklin. I even reached out to Jennifer Taylor, who played Chelsea on 2.5 Men, who played.
Oh yeah, I know who she is.
Charlie's fiance.
Yeah, how do you find those people? Where are they at?
I would almost say ancient Chinese secret, but I'm not. Believe it or not, you know how you just gave me your Instagram?
Yeah, you just go there.
If you go searching through, if you look them up, I reached out. Matter of fact, I attempted to reach, and no lie, folks, I have attempted to reach the original Wonder Woman, Linda Carter.
Yeah.
Their people got back to me and said, unfortunately, she's not interested.
Yeah.
I reached out to Taylor Tomlinson, who's she's now doing this show on CBS called After Midnight. Really, and she talks about her mental health in her comedy routines. She's a comedian. She hosts After Midnight. I reached out. I was like, listen, because she was just here in Philadelphia last year. She'll be back in Philadelphia in January. And I said, listen, I would love to have you on and chat with you about your career and, your comedy and all that and help promote. Her people said, not interested.
Yeah.
Then, like I said, Jennifer Taylor, I reached out to her. Her people got back to me and they're like, well, she charges $300. And that upset me. But, and this is what I mentioned to Mike before we started recording.
Yeah.
I got to be friends with some guests of this podcast. One of them was model Carol Alt.
Oh, yeah. Carol Alt. Yeah.
Yeah.
I know who she is.
Yeah. Believe it or not, she's actually, if you go on the Spotify for podcasters and you look up this podcast.
Yeah.
It wanted to be a 2-part because when we tried to do it through Instagram Live at the time. And
gotcha.
it didn't work. And we attempted to do it through the computer, but the computer only let you do the recordings for 30 minutes at the time. And with the Spotify for podcasters, formerly Anchor.fm, they let you record for an hour. And at the hour, they just cut you off.
Yeah.
So
is that still the case, Joey, on Spotify?
They don't let you record anymore from the app. You actually have to record it another way. No. Yeah. That's why I stopped using it. Yeah, you have to stream it another way. And then you have to upload it. And then you have to upload it. So I was like, no, that's why and this platform that I, like I said, I sent you the link to, you can have up to 6 people and it doesn't cost you anything.
Nice.
And plus, it's also, like I said, we're live on YouTube right now.
Okay.
So if anybody was watching it, it would tell me how many viewers were watching it.
Nice.
It wouldn't tell me who was watching it, but it would tell me how many. And it didn't cost me anything for that. And I've been very thankful to this platform for letting me do that. And we've done, believe it or not, oh God, Mike, I started this in 2019.
Yeah.
And between this platform, there was another platform called Podbean. I don't suggest Podbean because Podbean charges you $20 a month, if not more now.
Yeah.
This does not charge you. Okay? Unless you decide to go, like, if you wind up having a real town hall type and you have like 50 people all at one time, like you're doing a seminar, then they charge you for it, for a subscription.
On StreamYard?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So if you have more than 10, they charge you for a subscription.
Okay.
But between Podbean and this platform, I will say that I've done over 200 plus episodes.
Yeah, that episode that I was talking about with that guy that has the 3.7 million followers.
Yeah.
That was his 350th episode.
Wow.
So he's been at it a while too. And then the lady that I just had done this past week, Joey, down in Brazil.
Yeah.
She's in Rio de Janeiro.
Yeah.
And she's been doing it for over 10 years. So she's been around too for quite a while. So but yeah, like I said, it's getting the message out all over the globe.
Yeah.
And God told me when I was in all those dark places, hey, Mike, one day you're going to be able to just chill out in your bedroom and reach people all over the world for the gospel.
Yeah.
I would have laughed at him because of all the stuff I covered in our interview tonight.
Yeah.
But it happened, and I always close by saying every sinner has a future and every saint has a past, or vice versa. So that's the way you got to look at life. It's like no one's perfect, going back to Adam and Eve, so all throughout history, we all have flaws. And that's why I like those small groups, because we talk about that stuff, and it's like, what are you struggling with today? Or, how can we help support each other? And it's good therapy, but I even enjoyed the podcasting stuff as much or more. So I get every episode's different, and I learn something different from each one I appear on. So I am looking into, like we were just talking about, the possibility of starting my own. So I think it's the next move that I would be directed to take. So that's kind of where it's going.
Yeah. Because I just got started. And this is another kind of announcement. This started happening like this weekend, actually Monday. So it's not even that old. We are starting a newsletter where it goes out like once a month. And I didn't put it on here yet because I'm still kind of playing around with it. But we started a newsletter. It didn't cost me anything for that. There is a website that I'm looking at right now that would help me monetize these podcasts on YouTube.
Oh, okay.
So
you're gonna have to forward me that when you get that one worked out.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I'll be happy to. I'll be happy. Cool. And like I said, with this, like I said, this platform that we're using to do the live stream with, like I said, you just go on there, you sign up, and you connect it to your YouTube or your Facebook or your Instagram. But in reference to the where we're at right now, you can only link it up to one of them. If you do only one. Like,
do one of what?
In reference to when you link up, like this is on YouTube.
Yeah.
Okay. I could have done an Instagram live. I could have done a Facebook live with this.
Yeah.
But I chose YouTube because it's easier.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah. But you can only do one of them for free. If you did, if I did YouTube and Instagram, then it becomes the subscription part.
Oh, I gotcha.
Yeah.
Okay.
So you can stream it one way for free, but if you stream it with all of your social media, then it's a subscription.
Okay.
But yeah, I'll be happy to forward you the website I'm looking at in reference to it. Um, I'm waiting a little bit on it because there is a cost per month on it for it to happen. But they give you a trial.
Oh, I got you.
Yeah. So that's why I'm kind of holding off on that one. But the newsletter part, by the next podcast next week, I will have it up in the description. In the description of the next podcast. So, but I'll send you the link to where it's at, and that way you can look it up, and you can look into it for yourself, even if that has an interest to you on it.
Yeah, I appreciate that. I'll share something that'll make you smile before we close out tonight.
Go ahead.
I was in getting my beard trimmed today, wearing my custom gear, which says 22 veterans per day. Former homeless veteran shares his true life story at theguttergospel.com. Then I have wristbands that have my website on them. Yeah. And she goes, "Oh, so you don't have to work today?" Because my appointment was at 1:00, right? And I said, "No, I'm retired now." She goes, "You're retired?" Because I don't look that old, but
right.
I am 60. So she goes, "Well, what do you do now?" So I started telling her about the podcasting. She goes, "You're the most famous person I've ever met."
Wow. Well, one thing, like I said, I had Gregory Jabbar from CBS's Blue Bloods. I tried to get him back for the last season of Blue Bloods, but he was unavailable. And like I said, with Carol All, I reached out to her people. They let me have her on, and we became friends ever since. And we do a lot of chatting and
cool.
So she's got to be a great fan. She's a supporter. I introduced you to American Fox, who is this podcast's number one fan and supporter. And I will say this: as much as she gets upset with me because I take away time from the guests, she and if I get teared up, this is why. If it wasn't for American Fox right now, okay, I would have stopped this podcast months ago. I had those feelings to give it up. I still have the feelings to give it up. But every time I've turned around and said, "Oh, okay, I'm done at the end," this podcast is ending on this date, God turns around and says, "You know what? No, you're not."
Yeah.
And it shows through American Fox in a way, because American Fox is like that one big supporter. And she lets me know. And she even gives me ideas of who to reach out to. There's a podcast, like I said, about Liz River. She's an adult star. Okay. She's number 3 on the podcast on YouTube with almost 90 views. Okay. Yeah. There's one that's above her in second. She's at 86 the last I checked. The second place one was at 88. Okay. When I had Gregory Jabbar on the podcast, now I'm dating this back 5 years ago, almost 5 years ago. This is when William Shatner went to space. We did the podcast with the audio. The audio cut off at the hour, but we stayed on YouTube for an extra half hour.
Oh, wow.
And we were both watching William Shatner go to space on television. So I kept looking at the television. We're talking about William Shatner during that half hour that we were on the YouTube. Like right now, we actually, if we were still doing that recording, it would have cut off at the hour on the mark.
Yeah.
As compared to YouTube, you can go past the hour. I have a classmate I did 3 hours with. So there are some I've done an hour and a half. There are some I've done 2 hours, some 3. But the second place podcast I've done was with an actress in Germany. Beautiful young actress. Yeah. And she has 88 views right now. But the first place The most viewed podcast, and I mentioned it to Mike in the beginning, was only 16 minutes long because there wasn't a lot we could talk about.
Yeah.
She's from Malaysia in a city called Kuala Lumpur. She's got so many followers between Instagram and Threads and Twitter, now called X. Mike, that video has 1,630 views on it.
Cool.
Within a month. Within a month.
Yeah.
It just happened. I looked and I was like, oh my God. I couldn't believe this.
Yeah.
I would never think that 1,630 people viewed this 16-minute video. But she is a beautiful young lady. She also sings. So, that's why I had her on, because of the singing and helping her promote what she does.
Right.
So, hopefully, when you get your podcast going, there is another, I'm going to give you another person that I worked with. And this podcast actually used to be also on the World Podcast Network. And that became a subscription, so that's why I couldn't afford it as well. But at the time that it was free, I was able to see, Mike, there were about 2,000 visitors that looked at this podcast on the anchor.fm at the time.
Yeah.
And really wanted to, So he, came out with a Facebook page recently. But he definitely, and he just started Instagram too, I believe. So he's another one that you want to have on your podcast, because and it's also on the YouTube on this one. So when you get that opportunity to watch it, his name is Bruce Cheroff.
Okay.
I might have said his name wrong. Sorry, Bruce. But in reference to the World Podcast Network, the first 10 minutes, Mike, he couldn't stop talking about me. I was so amazed. And like I said earlier, blown out of the water.
Right. Yeah.
That this was really gaining stuff. And it got to the point where he put me on his, well, I wasn't physically on his podcast like, you and I talking.
Right.
But he turned around, he mentioned this podcast so many times on his podcast that it gained that much exposure as well. So, in reference to having guests, he's one that you definitely would want. Because he will be happy, and I mean literally, go head over heels and help support you in every way possible.
Beautiful.
Yeah, he definitely will be there for you. Matter of fact, when I finish this, I'm going to reach, I normally, like I said, I normally pay, not only do I send the guests the podcast, American Fox gets a copy of the podcast because of her questions. There's another person I send it to, but I also post it on Facebook and Twitter. So I start to post it to my social media.
Right.
So, when you get the link, yeah. And then, but if you do a GoFundMe, like you asked me earlier, you can do it for the trip. Really express how much this trip, what it all really means to you.
Right.
Because if you don't attract enough, you're not going to get anywhere. And of course you may be prepared for the negative comments of, you shouldn't be begging if you're getting $4,000 a month in Social Security, you don't need to raise money.
Right.
You know?
Yeah.
So be prepared for that.
Well, that was an issue, Joey, that I was just thinking about for the last 2 days. And, now that I've listened to you talk about it and the negative comments you get, I think I'm just going to stay clear of it. And what I'm going to do instead would be not ask for any money, because that's what I've been doing.
Right.
And what you shared about, the views and stuff, I'll share this with you.
Yeah.
Once I started doing these guest appearances on these podcasts the first of the year, I have my website set up through GoDaddy, and when you go into the back office on GoDaddy on my site, that only I have access to.
Right, of course. Yeah, I had GoDaddy before.
Okay, but anyway, so it gives you the visitors by month, right?
Yeah.
And it has just exploded in the last couple months.
Oh yeah, yeah.
So,
and like I said, you'll get a link. You'll get the YouTube link that you can put on your website, and see you on this podcast. And if the views go way through the roof, I know where it's coming from. If it's not from me sharing it,
But the thing is, I'm doing like one a day right now. So, and I was doing like 3 or 4 a day. So it's just been, like I said, all over the world. I talk to people on each continent now almost. So really get the message out there. Just from matchmaker.fm. I was on podmatch.fm, but I dropped that one. So, but
I didn't want to bring up I didn't want to bring this out because, like I said, in reference to, we got this opportunity now. But I will say this, folks, and it took him a little bit to apologize. The first time that I had attempted to have Mike on the podcast was back in January. Okay. And everything was all set. And I went and sent the link to him. And he no-showed on me. And I was like super pissed. I mean, I was doing my best at the time to let it go. And I kind of did after a bit. And then he turned around a couple weeks ago and emailed me back, and all of a sudden I got angry. I was like, "This is what you did to me," and I was like, and he apologized, and I'm going to say, if it wasn't for American Fox, okay, this podcast wouldn't have happened, okay, because I normally don't carry grudges. I'm not that type of person. But I was, and you wind up not being the only one that did this, and you didn't. I know, and you were busy. I think at the time you were busy working on your book or something. Back in January,
I actually had just got it finished and published. So I was working with Brooklyn Publishing, is who published it out in New York.
Yeah,
and I'm very proud of that, because it took me so many years to write it that it finally got published,
Yeah.
But I will apologize again, because I don't like doing that to anybody. But the one thing you'll know about me, Joey, is that since I just launched it in January, I was getting overwhelmed with how many people wanted me to appear, and that's no excuse.
Right.
But I'm getting my social media person now to help me stay organized so that I don't ever do that again. So,
and like I said, like I said, if it wasn't for American Fox in reference to the forgiveness, like I said, this podcast wouldn't have happened. And when when you got back to me, like I said, I was surprised, first of all.
Yeah.
And then, like I said, I explained what happened. And then, like I said, I was debating it. And like I said, American Fox said, let them go. And I was like, yeah, you're right. I should be forgiven. I should be forgiving people. That's who I am. And I'm glad you did come on the podcast.
How do you think it turned out, Joey?
Well, we're still live, so it's getting good. I mean, we don't have the views like we normally do because this is kind of later than we normally do.
Yeah.
So when it goes out on YouTube afterwards, I mean, the views will start coming in within a couple of days. So, I'm not worried as much. But, Mike, I do thank you so much for coming on the podcast and sharing your story. And what's the name of the book, by the way? We've been talking about it. We don't even know the name of it.
Yeah, it's called The Gutter Gospel, and the subtitle is The Road to Redemption. And I believe that to be true for all people that walk this earth. We've all been in the gutter, and, we all have a version of the gospel that we believe in, and every person has that ability to be redeemed. I believe that about anybody. So that's how the title of the book came about, The Gutter Gospel, The Road to Redemption. So there's an answer. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. Definitely reach out to Mike for the book. And I am thankful that the second time around we got this in and we got it out. And I am actually, in a way, I do feel the redemption, because, the first time, we didn't know this was going to happen. We didn't know, you were busy on the book at the time, and, I didn't look at it that way, or if I did, I didn't do it the proper way, like God wanted me to look at it.
Right.
And so, like I said, if it wasn't for American Fox, and I'll tell you, most of these questions that would you look at the other podcasts on the YouTube channel for this?
Yeah.
Most of the questions all come from American Fox most of the time.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Cool.
Like you said, she is the number one fan, number one supporter, besides a real life superheroine. So
she what's her story, Joey? Just a little bio on her.
She is a real life superheroine. She is American Fox 24/7. She has been a friend to me, and I'm going to get teared up, and she's going to get mad at me because, like I said, I'm taking time away from you, but this was your question, so she can't get mad at this.
Right.
But American Fox is a real life superheroine, and she is American. She doesn't have, a secret identity like Wonder Woman does with Diana Prince. I'll pull her back up. Just give me a moment. Okay, why aren't you letting me? It's not letting. Oh, you know why?
Is she a movie actress or? Joey, I think I lost you. Hello? Joey, are you there? I'm going to try waiting for him to come back on.
About that, Mike. I was trying to get her back on, and I hit.
That's okay.
This is, folks, when I said everything is outdated, you just saw proof of it. Because they give you a little box, like if it's really like doing what it's doing.
But that's okay, Joey. I don't need to see her again. I saw her before.
Yeah. I'm able to pull it up right now. I got it.
Okay, good.
Yeah, I got it. Just it takes a minute.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
But she'll pop up. Yeah. It's a big picture of her.
Yeah.
But like
now,
you said,
have you met her in person, Joey?
No. we are kind of email friends, but when I mentioned about the meet and greet that I'm raising money for, she is doing everything possible. And I'm going to admit this, folks. Even though I'm raising money to compensate these guests that are coming to these meet and greets and coming on the podcast as a guest itself, she is one that doesn't want anything out of it. Nothing. If something I look into is going to cost me, she kind of gives that push to say, you know what? If it's going to cost you, it's not worth it. But she is, like I said, she's just the number one fan, number one supporter. She's been a friend.
Nice.
And she has been my rock to this podcast. She is, one thing I always say, and I'm going to be very quick about, is I always ask for, I turn around and I'm like, you know what? I like to visually see proof if these podcasts really help out. She keeps reminding me that it helps her.
Yeah.
And it does touch my heart. Yeah. But the other thing in reference to it is I start to feel quote unquote greedy. One person is not enough to me. If people are really into this podcast and really think that I'm changing their lives or making a difference, I want to know. Because that helps me saying, okay, if this is what you like, this is what I'll work with.
Right.
So that's why I keep saying when I do these GoFundMes in reference to the podcast, it's not for me at all. It's not for me at all. It's for the viewers. I actually had a radio personality, okay? A Philly radio legend. When I told people I had this Philly radio legend on, their jaws almost dropped. And we only did 15 minutes because she does a radio show and she was doing something else and she was kind of on her way home when we did it. She was in the car when we did this.
Yeah.
But she did it because she took the time out to do the podcast, Mm-hmm. And, I'm truly thankful for that.
Yeah, I appeared on a local radio station that actually got me my first break, Joey, before I ever started doing podcasting. Mm-hmm. I'll send you the link.
Yeah.
It was from a local guy here in town. It's mostly political talk, that type of format.
Yeah.
But
that's kind of a danger area around here.
No, I understand, but what I'm saying is that he gave me like 20 minutes to come into the studio mm-hmm. and share my story. And like I said, that was when Brad was still alive back in December. Mm-hmm. And that was my first start with doing the book wasn't even finished yet.
Right.
And he allowed me to come on the air. So that was my first introduction to this type of stuff.
Well, believe it or not, I actually have friends that one follows me on Twitter, used to follow me on. Well, I gotta reach out and let that person know that I'm on Facebook, but because my Facebook account got hacked last year, so I have a better one. And I have a friend. Matter of fact, this was during COVID. Matter of fact, this was after I got COVID. I did a podcast and I had a news reporter on, and she's also a big supporter of mine. She started following me. Matter of fact, when I mentioned earlier about Carol Alt being friends, okay, she started following me out of the blue. her and I'm what even surprises me even more, and I've been begging this person to come on. She was one of the first celebrities that came out to me and started following me on Twitter. And her name is Kathy Ireland.
Oh, nice. Yeah, I know.
Out of the blue. It was like, Kathy Ireland is now following you. I was like, what? You got to be kidding me.
Right. Yeah.
You know, I was like, yeah, this couldn't be her, you know, but it's actually Kathy Ireland. Because one thing you want to do with Instagram and let your social media person know, you want to have that little blue check next to you.
Oh, X, you mean?
On X, on Instagram, all your social media sites. Get verified. Because
how does that work?
In reference to it, sometimes you may have to pay a monthly fee for it, but there's a lot of bots that will start liking posts that you do, and you have to be very, very careful. And when you go on these, when you go to, and I'm going to be honest, I investigate every like I get. If they say they have an OnlyFans or a porn website type thing, I block them right there and then.
Yeah.
Or they start to follow me, I'll have them unfollowed, and then I'll block them and report them. So you want to be very careful. In reference to that blue check mark, it verifies you that you're a real person. Even though I'm not verified, but you know, people do see me as a real person.
Right.
So that's why I suggest that for you. And like I said, if it wasn't for American Fox, like I said, this podcast would have been over a long, long time ago.
Correct.
You know? So I'm truly, you know how you've always been told God brought the right people into your life for reasons?
Yep.
In the beginning, I actually said to American Fox, I said, God brought you in this world, brought you into my life because there's something you and I both have in common.
Right.
The other day, while I was in Atlantic City and looking at the ocean and thinking about saying goodbye to the world, she actually turned around and said the same thing to me, that God brought her into my life for a reason. And I said, gee, that sounds familiar, doesn't it?
Yeah. Well, you know, Joey, I want to thank you for something, and that is for opening up and sharing the similarities that our paths have taken, and the same. You know, it wasn't the exact same struggles, but here's the way I look at my life these days. I'll sum it up for you real quick. It's basically, you know, when I start to get talking on these podcasts I do, and I get emotional, it shows that I'm the genuine deal, and I don't. It's not crocodile tears. It's the real thing coming out.
Right.
And the way I look at it is to say that had I not gone through all those trials, remember me telling you about what I was thinking in the state institution, and it was like, now I have so much more empathy for people that are going through their struggles and listening to them and sharing their stories and the common similarities that our paths have crossed in life. So that's how we have to look at it, I do believe.
Yeah. And I over the past couple of days, I had a look. I wanted to look at that way and really see what why I should still be around. And I realize that there are ways why I need to still be here. There are still things I can look forward to, but I don't, because I look at my past and I see where the past was and what happened with the past. and how it would turn up being a negative, being a negativity. But as I got to know American Fox, I saw that and realized, that she meant a lot. And I made my mistakes along the way where I was pushing myself into things that were uncomfortable to her.
Yeah.
And it got me to the point, and even when I was younger, I was picked on.
Yeah, me too.
I was always put down, hence why I'm hard on myself, and why, like in reference to why, I thought about the weekend and wanting to, because I have low self-esteem. I admit it. I now tell people, or people that say that they're interested in me to get to know me, Mike, they'll turn around, they say, oh yeah, I want to get to know you. They start saying they love you right off the bat. I'm like, how can you love me off a picture? How can you love me without getting to know me?
Right.
And then they turn around and like, oh, I'm going to love you forever. And like, you don't even know if you are, because there may be something about me that may not be right.
Yeah.
And American Fox found it out. There's another person that found it out. There's a third person that found it out. But they still were interested.
Yeah.
In who I am, and
Well,
wanted to build a friendship at least with me.
Yeah.
But I turned around with one. It wound up being more than a friendship. But with others, it was like, now I want more. I start, like I mentioned about, how being greedy.
Right. Yeah.
And this is how I look at it in life. Yeah, I'm happy with what I have, but it's like I want more. And then when you want more, you're pushing, and when you push, you open up that box to the point where they don't want that. And you can't stop yourself to a point. So you get to the point where it's like an all for nothing, all or nothing. So that's how I am now these days. And this is how I'm being told.
Well, I'm all or nothing too, Joey.
Yeah.
I have that makeup. That's the bipolar part in me. And I was thinking of this. I didn't share this with you yet, but I mentioned right almost at the beginning about these sample chapters, and I shared the one about the straitjacket.
Yeah.
But the first one was when I was working out like a bandit with Donnie that I was talking about, and all that stuff. Mm-hmm. And I saw my dad, who had been dead for 8 years, and he appeared to me. And this is another manic episode. And again, it's the first sample chapter, and then it goes to the straitjacket after that. Right. But anyway, so he appeared to me and told me to go in the bedroom, grab his shotgun, which was the only thing that I got out of his estate, if you want to use that word, and blow my effing head off.
Okay. Believe it or not, Mike, before you go any further, I'm actually going to have a guest on the 22nd.
Yeah.
By the name of Frank King.
Okay.
And just like what you just said in reference to, he talks about suicide.
Yeah.
But he also worked for the Tonight Show.
Okay.
So that's something we're going to, you might want to watch it live on the 22nd. It's supposed to happen at 5:30 p.m. Central Time on the 22nd. So you want to watch that live in reference to it. And, he actually was on, he's actually on matchmaker.fm as well. So
what's his name?
Frank King.
Okay, Frank King.
Oh, no. Correction. No. I'm going to give you another website
Okay.
and that I use. And this one's free. Okay. It's called podcastguests.com.
Podcastguest.com.
Yes. And that's where I got other guests from as well.
Can you send me that link then?
Yeah. Oh yeah. I'm going to send it to you when I send you this video.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh yeah. I'd be happy to send you that. Yeah. You sign up for that, and you can even, once you get your podcast started, okay, you can even get your podcast on there to be recognized and try to, have guests come on, guest requests like you came to me.
Right. Yeah.
And,
okay.
They can go onto your page and say, I'd like to come on your podcast because of this. Just like the questions they asked you on matchmaker.fm, they asked you about the same on this website too. So, actually, no, I'm sorry. With Matchmaker, it's just conversation. As compared to podcast.com, they want you to give, your link, how many episodes you've done, all these questions, and it's worth it.
Yeah.
I had a ventriloquist on, very beautiful ventriloquist on, just before Thanksgiving.
Okay.
Or no, correction, just before October, and she was coming out with a Christmas song.
Oh, okay.
And her name is April Brucker, and she was actually on MTV at one time.
Oh, yeah.
She did a guest spot on MTV. She was even on Judge Jerry before Jerry Springer passed away.
Oh, okay.
She was a court case, and we had so much fun. And she's on the YouTube channel, so you want to watch that because she has a I will not call them puppets.
Yeah.
Even though she's a ventriloquist. But one of her friends is named Mae Wilson.
Okay.
Mike, she was hitting on me the whole time. We were talking. And I was and I couldn't picture myself. I'm like, I'm getting hit on by a puppet.
Yeah.
But it was so much fun. And yes, I'm going to be political for a minute. She has a friend named Donald Trump. And him and I went at it. Him and I literally went at it in reference to political stuff. Him and I, but it was all in fun. And and when you see that, you will see it's all in fun. But we have a grand time. And but that podcastguests.com is great. And you get 2 emails a week once you sign up.
Yeah.
Of all these potential guests and what they do. And if there's something within what you want, you could reach out to them and invite them on. And if they get back to you, they get back to you. Like I said before, I looked on Instagram. That's how I came across Gregory Jabara, Linda Carter. I've had superheroine cosplays, even though American Fox is a real life one. I've even tried to get American Fox on here.
Yeah.
No lie. I told her I wanted her to come on the podcast so she could tell everybody all about herself and what, her superpowers, But of course we don't talk about, her weaknesses because anybody, that may not be interested in her per se, I don't want to get her destroyed. I don't want to,
Right.
But like I said, if it wasn't for American Fox, this podcast wouldn't be going on.
Yeah.
And and every day, as much as I quote unquote am pushing her away, because of my mental health issues and my, like I said, like what happened over the weekend.
Right.
And I still feel that way because it's like I'm like that person that wants to be on the outside looking in. It's like I want to be. It's like I feel antisocial now.
Well, you know what, Joey? I'll share this with you.
Sure.
You still have a purpose, man. I can tell just in these, what has it been, 2 hours or so now that we've been chatting, that you've got a good heart, and you know, you ever need anything, I'm now on the outside looking in where you kind of want to go, because that's what the book's about. I don't want to pimp my book too much, but it's like, it's about the journey, you know, and the road to redemption. And like I shared with you earlier, you know, Joey, that's everybody's got that in them with God's grace. So, you know, don't give up on yourself, man. I won't give up on you. And I don't give up on anybody, you know.
Well, American Fox reminds me of that every day.
Yeah, that's good to have in your life. Well, you can count me in your inner circle if you'd like to, because
I appreciate that. And believe me, like I said, in reference to your podcast, and yes, I'm going to admit this, I'll be happy to guest on your podcast to share my story.
Yes,
I don't share it on here because, and the reason why I don't share it per se is because of what actually happened.
Yeah.
Because you hear a lot about it now these days on the news, and every time I hear it, it makes me feel worse because it reminds me of it happening with me.
Yeah.
So that's why I'm careful on how I mention it.
Yeah. And I don't really watch the news because it is such a downer all the time, you know. Regardless of political stands or anything else, you just look at how much, like I shared earlier about my buddy dying with cancer, and telling him, look, you're going to be so much better off, man, if you do pass away, than having to stay behind and live in this shitty world. But it's not up to us to decide when we go out and on our own terms and take our own lives. That's not in God's plan for us. That's why we're still here. And that's why I had to endure all that stuff. And I openly share that when I do appear on these shows, because people can relate to it. You know, I get emails all the time. I hand out my personal email, my business one, and it's saying, Mike, I'm thinking of suicide. Where do I turn? If you go on my website, you'll see the links up there for suicide prevention hotline. You'll see the prayer line. You'll see a couple other links I put up there to help people, and also hand out my personal email. So,
Mike, I'm going to give you a quick story in reference to the suicide hotline.
Yeah.
I had a couple of doctor's appointments one day.
Okay.
And I was getting a little frustrated because so much was going on. I get home. Not even as I walk in the door, I get a phone call from the suicide prevention line. Someone called thinking I was going to commit suicide. And I'm like, why would I wasn't even thinking about suicide at the moment. You know, like I'm fine as could be. You know, I just had a bad day. And I even knew I was having a bad day. You know, I wasn't thinking of like ending my life because the doctors were saying this, this, and this. You know, it was just a bad day.
Yeah.
And they literally had the suicide prevention call me on my cell phone, had my number, called me, and said, well, someone called to say that you were going to end your life. This was 1 o'clock in the afternoon Central Time when this happened. And I'm like, I have no thoughts of suicide. I'm like, I thank you for calling me, but I'm fine as could be, and there's no thoughts of suicide at this time. You know, because I was feeling up, you know, like I said, I was just having one of those days, you know, but this, you know, like with this past weekend, and the story about the South Street Bridge. That was 2012, by the way.
Right.
And we're in 2025, and all of a sudden this came up. But a little bit before that, when I say I just lost my job, I worked at Amazon in Jersey.
Oh, wow.
And one night, I just got off of work, and I was on my way over to the Wawa to get something, or either Wawa or I was going towards the bus stop, one of the two. And I was looking up in the sky. Every time I'm seeing the stars, it reminds me of my family members being up there like it's heaven.
Yeah.
I literally said, Mike, I wanted to be up there.
Yep.
I turned around and I mentioned it to people like American Fox and this other person because her mom had passed away. And, she got to know me, and her birthday was closer to mine and all that. And they both were like, why did you say that? Why did you feel that? It was because I wasn't feeling right.
Yeah.
It came out just one night, and out of the blue, it just came out. Like, I wish I was up there with you. But at the same time, because of what had happened to me, there are some of them that are up there that was like, you don't belong up there, because you sinned major league, because what I did was kind of like major league back then. And like I said, you hear it on the news now these days, or you read it in the papers. And like I said, that's why I'm careful on how I state it.
Yeah.
It was almost like you don't belong up there, you belong down below.
Yeah.
So, like I said, that night I said it, and I turned around and I said, you know what, I better say something about it, because if I don't, and I was going through therapy at the time. I was seeing a psychologist at the time, and I said that, and I can't blame all psychologists. I mean, like I said, the psychiatrist I saw was the one that told me that these podcasts was like my therapy.
Right.
All the psychologists ever want to do is they want you to think about what you're going to do. Why go to them,
Yeah.
If they're asking you what you're going to do, you don't have the answers. How are you going to get the help if they're not going to help you and they're asking you what you're going to do? Why did it's like, I might as well just turn around and say, you know what, I'm going to blow my freaking brains out for you even asking me that,
Yeah.
And that's why I stopped going, because it wasn't helping me.
Yeah.
Now, the psychiatrist actually did help me. Actually, the first psychiatrist that was recommended to me actually just put me on medication. Didn't even really, just put me on medication. And I'm like, why? And, like I said, I took it, because if it was supposed to help, it helped. And then when I started seeing this psychiatrist, he's like, well, why did they put you on pills? I'm going to take you off the pills. I mean, you're fine. You have your panic attacks. You have, they're normal, kind of, in a way. And, like you say, you do these podcasts, and your podcasts are like your therapy, because you're getting it out. And I'm like, like it's the first time he said that to me, I looked at him. I was like, what? I was like, you're kidding me. You think my podcast is really helping me? And I'm like, like I said earlier, I want to see the proof.
Right.
That, it's making a difference. It took me a little bit, and then it sunk in. Like, you know what? He was right. It is helping me. It's getting me to do better. Well, over the weekend, when I thought about the ocean, what came out of my mouth was, yeah, this podcast is really doing stuff for me. Where's the proof? I was going back to be like, how can I? This is what American Fox calls me when I'm in that mood like I feel right now, or I felt over the weekend. She calls she calls that negative Joey. She's like, well, let me know when negative Joey's gone. I'm like, okay. I said, I doubt he wants to go, but this time it wasn't. I was feeling negative, but it wasn't because of me. Totally because of me. It was because of other things that were in reference to the podcast, part of it to the podcast that, I've been working on coming back being thrown at me. And I was like, you know what? I'm done with it. And, like I said, if it wasn't for people like American Fox who still believe in me, and no matter what I throw at her, she's still there.
Yeah.
And, I get to the point where would I want to meet up with her? I wanted to. I went down to by where she was at, but she wasn't comfortable. And I didn't, at the time I didn't think of that.
Yeah.
It was because I had pushed myself. And, I was, and to this day, I am still sorry for that. But at the same time, it was like, I still want more. That greed is still in me. And I kind of used this movie in reference to what I feel right now. It's a comedy. It's got Justin Timberlake and Mila Kunis. It's called Friends with Benefits.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
And that's kind of what I wanted. I wanted more than a friendship. I wanted somebody I could spend time with and have. The best way of saying it was having sex without having a relationship.
Yeah.
Just like a what people would call now a fuck buddy.
Yeah.
That's what I was looking for.
Right.
And that's what I pushed on so many people, to the point where when they threw it back at me and what I was doing, I'm like, you know what? I'm sorry. I'm out of here. Because I wasn't getting what I was wanting. And that's what I keep getting stated.
Yeah.
And every time I mention that, I get worse because I'm feeling bad that I'm pushing it, but at the same time, I'm feeling bad because I'm getting greedy.
Yeah.
And that's why I keep mentioning greed. And at the same time, in reference to the words that come out of people's mouths, I literally take that to offense. I'm not, I may not be a spring chicken anymore, but if you're going to say something that is going to sound hurtful to me, I'm going to take it as hurtful right there and then. I'm not going to, sugarcoat it and say, oh, yeah, it'll be fun and all that, because it's deep down, I absorb it.
Yeah.
One thing I will say with my ex-wife and American Fox, I'm apologizing that I'm hogging up time on the guest, because she will say that to me.
Yeah.
But my ex-wife would actually tell you she's fat and ugly. Mike, over the past couple of years, I started calling myself fat and ugly. I started to, because I absorbed what she said. Matter of fact, there was even one night I was in Atlantic City overnight, and I took the Greyhound bus because at the time I didn't know about much with the train and all that. So I was walking along the streets of Atlantic City during the night, and one lady I walked by literally called me a creep right to my own face. And I'm like, what? But she also said something else I can't say. But she used the word creep. And then I hear other people, even when I was working at Amazon, there was one that was literally saying, you're creepy looking. And I took that to heart. And I'll be honest, if anybody calls me a creep, it's going to hurt me.
Yeah.
And I absorb that, and I turn around, and that's why one of the reasons why I say I don't want another I feel like I'm not going to have another relationship is because I'm creepy, I'm fat, and I'm ugly. I'll throw all those three things out plus the past. And,
yeah.
And I'll that's like my barrier. And I've broken it down a couple times, and broke free from it, but it would grab me at the end. It still grabs me. I had a classmate that I told you that we did like 3 hours, and we're over 2 hours now.
Yeah.
He sent me this little heart pendant. Okay.
Yep.
To heal. It helped for a little bit. I mean, if I hold it, it helps. But I can't go to it all the time. Now, if I had it around my neck, it'd be a whole different story. That's my fault. But he had me. He put that over the phone, and we sat for hours trying to cleanse everything out of me, and we did. But it doesn't. That one part will not come out, no matter how much pressure I put on it. It's going to stick because it's part of the past. So that's what I've called my life sentence.
Yeah.
And that's the boundary that's thrown up there.
Well, I can share this with you, Joey. Sorry if I'm interrupting, but
no. This is the podcast, and this is how again it's supposed to be. The guest is supposed to take control of the podcast. This is all about them, not me.
Well, I didn't share this with you, but when I was born, I know you've seen the movie Forrest Gump probably several times, right?
Once.
Okay. Anyway, at the beginning of Forrest Gump, when he was little, they put those braces on his feet.
Yeah.
That was me.
Wow.
When I was little, growing up in Aberdeen and in Sauk Center. And to this day, I walk different than most people with very flat feet. I got an invitation to my niece's wedding down in Minneapolis, and I was debating about not going. And I was parked at Walmart with my wife, and I had to go in and use the bathroom. So I was walking in there, and she comes out, and she goes, "Mike," and I go, "Yeah." I didn't even recognize her hardly, right? She goes, "I'd recognize you anywhere by the way you walk." So it's still with me in adulthood. So I had to compensate for that as a kid. Thankfully, I had an older brother that would protect me and fight with me and stuff. So, but yeah, so I can understand and relate to a lot of what you're saying because, everybody in life has their struggles that they have or issues that they have to deal with. And not only was it that from birth, but then also all the stuff that I mentioned to you growing up and what it was like, losing my dad at an early age and so on and so forth. The 2 suicide attempts, the manic episodes, the jail, the civil commitments, the institution, all that stuff. And it was like, you know what? I was just so fed up with it. They put me in a paddy wagon, Joey, out in the state institution in chains. And every week they would shuttle me from the state institution back to Fargo to stand court. To stand in court and beg for my freedom because of my mental illness. That's how severe it was. And when you mention medications, I'm on medications now because of my bipolar is so severe that if I'm not and I don't get sleep, then I get way off the rails mentally. So it's all a balance for me. I can't go to the gym anymore because I destroyed my right deltoid
Oh,
in
wow.
a drinking accident many years ago. So that's all shot. So I have to type with my left hand, which goes very slowly because I'm right-handed by nature. So it's just been one struggle after another, and that's, like I said earlier to you, that's kind of why I'm doing these now, is because it is therapy, and I get to meet people from all over the globe that share the common hurt of the heart. It's just a matter of to what degree, and we've all been called the creep and all this other stuff that you're sharing, in life at one point or another, or more frequently than others. But so I'll say this with you. I'm kind of getting a signal here. I got to take off now to get a bite to eat because I went to group right before I jumped on with you.
Yeah. No, I understand. Yeah, it's almost 11 o'clock here in Philly. So, I mean, we've been on it for 2 hours.
Before I let you go, I got to ask you, though, I bet you're a big Eagles fan, aren't you? Or do you watch sports?
I do what. Okay, here's another thing that is common with American Fox and I.
Yeah.
We talk about sports. I am not an Eagles fan. Yes, I live in Philadelphia, folks, but I am not an Eagles fan. I will watch the Eagles to a point. If they play the 49ers, don't even think I'm going to root for the Eagles.
That's your team, huh?
I'm a 49er, and I've been a 49er fan since the Joe Montana days.
Okay, that's going way back.
Yeah. I grew up in New Jersey.
Oh, okay.
And I lived in Central. Now, it took until Governor Murphy to legally say that there is a Central Jersey, folks. There is a Central Jersey. And I grew up in New Brunswick. I grew up in the New Brunswick area.
Yeah, I've heard of that.
Rutgers State, when you hear Rutgers football or Rutgers basketball, I grew up in that area.
Okay, yeah.
Now, where I lived, you were either a Yankees or Mets fan. Well, I'm definitely not a Yankees fan. I will say that. I am a Mets fan, folks. And I've gone to see them here at Citizens Bank Park. Okay? And even when it was Veterans Stadium, I was here with a late friend of mine. And we would see the Phillies Mets games. Okay? A couple of times I've gone to the Phillies Mets games. I actually walked in wearing Mets gear and no one attacked me. But here's the thing. I'm sitting there. I'm sitting watching a game, just watching a game. And of course, there's Mets fans above me. And the Mets fans above me start to get rowdy. So when the game ended, I'm walking out, and someone comes up to me and says, you're one of the nicest Mets fans around. I said, yeah. I said, I don't get rowdy. I mean, I might say boo Phillies, but I don't really boo them. Yeah. They're players on a field. They make plays. I may get upset of the play, but I'm not going to hold it against them.
Right. Yeah.
I'm not going to say, I'm not going to throw beer cans out on the field at them. I'm just going to watch the game and mind my own business about it.
Well, up here, I actually grew up in Northwest Minnesota, and so we're Vikings fans up here. And I went down to the Vikings and Jaguars this past November down in Florida in Jacksonville.
Yeah.
And went to the game, and it's funny because one of my nephews was sitting next to me, and he goes, "Hey, Mike, you want a good laugh? Check that old guy out about 8 rows down." Yeah. So I'm looking down at the guy, and then sure enough, he's pulling out his binoculars. And my nephew commented, he said, and I kid you not, Joe, he goes, he only pulls those out when the cheerleaders come on the field.
Oh no! See, I've never gone to an NFL game because they're so expensive ticket wise. You know.
Yeah, I know. It was
I've
a
gone to a
rip
college football game. I've gone to two
Yeah, hey,
Rutgers football games.
yeah, check this out. My wife goes and buys what was it, 6 or 7 bottles of water. That's all we got. We weren't drinking beer, weren't none of that.
Right.
So we guess how much 7 bottles of water cost at that
50
game.
bucks.
Damn close, 48.
Yeah. I mean,
crazy.
Yeah, I mean, just for a soda, the last time I went to Citizens Bank Park was like $7.
Yeah,
but,
crazy.
And I was pricing tickets for this season to go see a Phillies Mets game at Citizens Bank Park, and the cheapest ticket. And I will sit in the nosebleeds. I will sit in the 400 section. I will sit on that top row. Was $29 a ticket.
Yep. Yeah, crazy.
Now, if the Phillies get really good, like they're doing right now, those tickets are not going to be $29 anymore. They're going to go like $59, $69. You know?
Right.
So we will see what happens during the season. I thought about going to Citi Field. Now, I've gone to Shea Stadium. I'll say that. I will say the last girlfriend I mentioned earlier about Disney World and North Carolina took me to Yankee Stadium to see a Yankees. I think we watched the Yankees Mets game at the time, and she's a Yankee fan. And I know some classmates that are Yankees fans. I also know classmates that are, I hate to say it, but and one of them is someone I mentioned earlier, Cowboys fans.
Oh man!
When I say we talk sports,
I got a story for you about the Cowboys. Here's a story.
Oh boy!
I was.
Wait, Mike. I'm going to stop you really quick. This story I'm giving has nothing to do with me and the Dallas Cowboys. I do not take responsibility for it. This is all on Mike. Go ahead, Mike.
Okay, so here's the story. Because I was stationed about 100 miles north of Texas Stadium in the Air Force.
Okay.
And my buddy was from New York. So from Manhattan, actually, right?
Yeah.
Mikey, you got to come to New York. I'm like, you know what? I would not go out there on a bet. I love the Lakes country, and I have no interest. But anyway, he goes, so me and him buy all these Cowboy Redskin tickets for the opening game.
Oh my God.
In let's see, what would this have been? 86. It was we also went to the Giants game because he was a big Giants fan. That was the year they had Lawrence.
I did the Giants Stadium. That's where I saw the second Rutgers game.
Yeah, and they won the Super Bowl that year. But anyway, for the Cowboys Redskins, we bought all these tickets thinking we were going to make a killing because it was such a big rivalry. We wound up taking it up the ass, about $300 a piece, and had to scalp the tickets because they were Dallas was no good at that time. So I got to meet Danny White, their quarterback.
I remember Danny White.
Yeah, he came through our training session in the military. But so I hate the Cowboys. I hope I don't offend people. But
if you did, I'll hear about it. I'll hear. And I will say I have a classmate. When I put this on Facebook, I will mention him. I'll say, so and so. You need to listen to the last couple of minutes of the podcast because we talk about Dallas. He used to do work where he got to meet Drew Pearson, Danny White, Roger Staubach, all these Dallas players. He got to meet them face to face. Even I think he even did one with Emmitt Smith. I have to double check, but he he was like he was working with this agency that was dealing with Dallas. So I turned around and I was doing it more towards it. At the time I kind of was in between the jobs, between working at home and Amazon. And I went to him via text. I said, "Listen, how would you like to branch your agency out to Philadelphia, and we could do the Eagles?" What do you think he said, Mike?
No way in hell, right?
You got it. He was like, "No, hell no." He said, I ain't gonna touch no Eagles fans. Yep. I said, "Well, you're not. It would have been me." He's like, "Oh, hell no. No. I want nothing to do with the Philadelphia Eagles." And I was cracking up at the same time. I was like, I knew he wouldn't, because, he was so much into Dallas and I just couldn't help it. So
well, listen, my friend, I got to jump off here. Because,
yeah. Thank you so much, Mike.
I still haven't had supper, but listen, I just wanted to say thank you so much again for having me on. And
you're welcome.
I really enjoyed it. So hopefully you get some good comments and feedback from your followers that listen to it. You'll have to let me know. And send me those links again. What was that last one you said?
The podcastguests.com.
Okay. Yeah.
If you don't do it tonight, I'll probably send it tomorrow morning because it's almost 11 o'clock here.
Yeah. Adios.
So yeah. All right. Well, thank you so much, Mike.
Yep. God bless.
Thank you, everybody. God bless you all. Take care.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.